record. And let me share my screen.
Great.
All right. Hello and welcome to Write Your Bestseller. We're going to, in this next hour, we're going to talk about your book, your bestseller, and we're not just going to theoretically talk about it. We're going to actually grab pen and paper or crayons and chalk or whiteboards or whatever you've got, and we are going to write your bestseller in this next hour. Okay? All right. I'm excited. So let's jump right on into it. So you can see on your screen just some of the covers, some of the books that I've worked with over the years. There's about 50 or 60 of some of the books that we did. What was really interesting was in the first year, we did 156 authors that we worked with, and that equated to over, like 180,000 people that were able to get copies of their book on that first day. We've now worked with over 5,000 or right at 5,000 authors, helping them write, publish, market their books to bestseller and beyond with 100% success rate. And that equates to literally millions of people who have been reached with their cool message. So today, what you can expect is we're going to talk a little bit about who I am, what we as a company do, the benefits of being a best-selling author, and then we're going to dive right into our bestseller formula. My name is Steve Kidd. I am a third-generation minister, an international best-selling author of 22 books and counting. In fact, I've got another 9 or 10 that I'm in the process of finalizing right now. And as I said, I've worked with thousands of authors in the writing, publishing, and marketing their books to, more than anything else, bestseller. And that's a word I want you to really become acquainted with and really used to. What I know as a marketing professional, I've been in the marketing space since the mid 80s, in internet space since literally before the word the internet existed. And I have really discovered that there is no more powerful of a message of verbiage that you can use than the phrase bestseller. And if you think about it, you do even something as simple as a free giveaway, and you say to the people, here's 5 things that I came up with. That's pretty powerful and pretty cool because you're an amazing person. But when we say, here are the 5 things based off of my best-selling book, you can even hear the difference in languaging in that. And the reason why is because someone is waiting on you. There's someone who knows you. They know you have a story to tell. They're looking for the solution that you have. Maybe even people are coming to you for answers. A lot of times we discount the people that are coming to us because we haven't necessarily gotten paid for it. Maybe we've done it for free, but that doesn't make it any less impactful or any less important that we take and share our message with the world. There are some very serious benefits to being a best-selling author. There are so many things that you can do that will help you with your speaking, with your coaching programs. As I had mentioned before, your marketing. Best-selling author is the #1 influencer credential, bar none. In fact, I would go so far as to say you will never maximize the potential of your marketing if you don't have attached to it best-selling author or best-selling book. And if you're just like, I know I want help with it, I need to know where to go next, I'm going to be giving you this link throughout our presentation. You can go to bookhelpapplication.com, and we'll help you decide what exactly is the best for you. So let's talk about a few of the people that I've worked with. This is Forrest and Anthony. Forrest and Anthony are fitness trainers, and they were working in their local community and came up with an idea for something they could do nationally. They put out their best-selling book and made it a bestseller. And what they did from that is they created a whole new division of their company that made more than $2,000 in the first year of that division alone, just from the new company that they based off of their book, Awakening to Your Fitness Journey. And then there's Pastor Andrea Humphrey. Pastor Andrea had a couple of books that were already out that weren't really selling. But when her book launched, this is way back in September of 2016, she not only became a best-selling author, she was number 84 out of all books on all of Amazon. Pretty impressive kind of a statistic. And then she began to find that not only was the respect and the credential there, but people started asking her for more help and advice. They began buying her other books, and it really made a difference in her career. Stuart Ross, my friends that are in the UK tell me that he is the UK equivalent of Tony Robbins. And of all the cool stuff he had done, the one thing that he had never done was become a best-selling author. So we helped him put down his expertise for his book, made him a best-selling author, and it added that additional credential. What he immediately found was that even though he was doing really well in business, it had a notable leap in his ability to be able to turn people from interested to clients even more quickly. Dr. Alicia Griffith, she's literally a medical doctor. She's worked in the field of audiology, working with children with autism for more than 20 years. Interestingly enough, about 10 years into that journey, her son was born autistic. And so she has both the personal end of things as well as the professional end. But I love her quote. She said that it gives me more credibility from using the word best-selling author than all of the credentials that I have behind my name. And she's turned that into not only a national book tour, but she's been on television on some fairly major television shows that you've probably heard of, like Good Morning America. And I see that we've got a couple of questions here in the chat. All right. So Carl Michelle has this incredible book. I encourage you to get it. 365 Hip Hop. It is a 365-day devotional, has little one page. Carl took quotes from hip hop songs from artists that you would be like, oh my gosh, these people have nothing that I want to hear or will learn anything from, and found amazing nuggets of truth in those. And he wrote a book intentionally on purpose to help teens. And he was, before the book came out, already working, but he found often that even when he called a school and offered to work for them for free to do a presentation, that they wouldn't say yes to him. And then his book came out. He was a #1 bestseller. In fact, if you look at Carl's book, which came out January 1st of 2016, and you looked at it today, it's still on the bestseller list, has been consistently for the last now, what is that, 8 years that he's been a bestseller. And I met with Carl about 3 months after his book came out, and he said, here's the thing. The people used to say no to me all the time. Now they're not only inviting me, my average price is about $2,000 per speaking gig, and I'm booked out 6 months in advance. That's the power of that little phrase, best-selling author. But we don't just write books. That's right, we write bestsellers. I want you to keep that name in your head. And again, I encourage you, at any point, if you're ready, you can go to bookhelpapplication.com or save that for later. We can walk you through from wherever you are, whatever you need, we can help you get to where you're going. Because you see, bestseller is a formula. I wish it was magic. I wish I could just say, I'm a wizard and I just do these incredible things that nobody else can do. But it really is truly a formula. And unfortunately, kind of like the person who maybe told you that there wasn't a Santa Claus, that it was your parents putting the presents under the tree. Being a bestseller is a marketing system that when you know it, as I say in my 20th book, bestseller is the beginning. Bestseller is your day one approach to what you're doing in your life, in your business, and especially with the marketing of your book. It's a system that is predictable And in fact, we guarantee money back guarantee, in fact, that if you work with us, we can make your book a bestseller. Now, what kind of book should you write? Amazon has come up with this whole new category that they call short reads. Short reads are incredibly hot. Short reads are a book in print of 100 pages or less. I'm going to move my mic back just a little bit. I hope that didn't squeak. And what that means is that when you look at a book, and I don't have it up there, but those books that you saw a minute ago, those are most all of them short reads, with the exception of Carl's book. And that means that it's 100 print pages or less. Amazon statistics have shown that if your book is 100 pages or less, more than 60% of the people that get it will read it and finish the book. If your book goes from 101 to 200 pages, it's less than, well, or right around 20% of the people who get the book that will finish the book. And then, if we go to the more traditional, where the publishing companies have taught us that books should be 300 pages, if your book is more than 200 pages, it's actually less than 3% of people that will ever finish your book. Now think about that for a second. Typically speaking, at the end of our book, we want to tell people what they can do next with us. And if we don't ever get them to the end of the book, then how are they possibly going to know what to do next with us? How can we help them take the next step if they never get to the end of this first step? So let's help people be not part of that 3%, but part of the 60% of people that finish our book. This works so effectively that some of you may know John Maxwell. John Maxwell's written over 100 books, and the last of his books, he began to start using this same principle. And what he found is that rather than taking chapters like you see here, how to successfully grow, how to win, how to lead, how to think, those would have been individual chapters in a book that he used to do. What he did was broke those out into individual books of their own. Now, as you can see, they were still #1 on New York Times bestseller list, and all of those kind of things. And of course, they did great on Amazon as well. And inside of his community, they even refer to them as the blue book or the purple book or things like that. What it does is it allows a person to take one step, to put one foot in front of the other, and walk from where they are to where they're going effectively and impactfully, so that they can really, really, truly reach the people that they need to reach, and people can get the solutions that they want. Some of you have probably heard of my friend and marketing genius, Seth Godin. Seth has all of his books, the 25 or so that he's written, that are bestsellers. 5 of them are less than 100 pages, like I mentioned. And his book, V is for Vulnerable. If you guys haven't read V is for Vulnerable, you really need to get it. It is one of the most amazing, up-leveling type of books that you'll ever read on how to really reach people in marketing. And V is for Vulnerable, 64-page book. How many of you have heard of Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown? Yeah, Brene Brown, and all of her books are so amazing. Gifts of Imperfection is technically 160 pages, but if you've read it, then you've opened up the cover and you can see it's pretty much, its standard is a large print edition. Each of the chapters start about halfway down the page. There's a lot of blank pages in there. And yet, this editor's best book of the month, #1 New York Times bestseller, #1 Amazon bestseller, amazing book, is and always has been a short read. And then lastly, let's talk about a book who any of you who have ever worked in corporate have probably seen, and that's the 28 million plus copies sold worldwide, international bestseller, Who Moved My Cheese? It's only 95 pages in large print. And this book has now been translated into 44 different languages. 28 million copies have been sold. Now, I'm sure that when you got this book, you looked at it and you were glad that it was as short as what it is, because ultimately, Really what we want as people is we want the information that we need, and then we want an action. In fact, I'm going to give you a little secret here. Are you ready? Ready to take a note? You can even put this in the comments if you want to. We want to take one point, make it really clear, and give the people a clear action from that point. And if we have a second point, guess what? That's book two. It's just that simple. And if you really, really want to shoot for the moon, you want to say, how small is too small? Here's a book that I encourage you to get. It's only in ebook form. It's called Marketing in Less Than 1,000 Words. And this over 40,000 copies. That's an old screenshot that I got of it. It's way over 40,000 copies now. It is 6 pages. That's right, 6 pages, 999 words, but it is a #1 best-selling book. And believe it or not, there's actually some really, really great marketing tips in there. So you're going to ask me, well, what should I write? And I'm going to answer that back, of course, with questions at you. What do you want to be known for? What programs are you focused on offering just this year? If you were sitting next to somebody in the airport, not just any somebody, but if you're sitting next to your absolute perfect ideal client, the person who you just know you could help them, what is the one thing that you want to make sure that they know? Or if somebody said you have 5 minutes to talk about the most important thing in your life, what is the one thing you want to make sure? Does that give you kind of a little secret as to what you might want to write your book about? Now, again, if you need help figuring that out, I'm here for you. You can go to, again, bookhelpapplication.com and you can get that. But what I want to do now is I want to jump into creating your book. Are you ready to write your book? Grab a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil or a crayon. I've seen people do this on napkins, sticky notes, whiteboards, anything, computers, anything you can use to doodle on and take notes. And then in the middle of that piece of paper, I'm going to refer to it as a piece of paper, whatever you're working with is fine. In the middle of that piece of paper, draw a circle. I want you to think of this as your bullseye. Okay, you can draw some concentric circles inside of it if you want to. All right. And inside of that circle, we're going to put our topic or title. Remember a minute ago, I said, if you only had just time to tell people one thing, what is the one thing you absolutely want to make sure that people know? So if you don't have a working title for your book, if you don't already know, I want my book to be called The 5 Reasons Why I Love the Work I Do. I just came with that off the top of my head. If you don't know specifically the title, you can then just do a topic. I want to write a book that is about how important it is for a person to drink water on a regular basis. Okay, maybe that's what it is. How important it is for you to take 30 minutes a day of alone time to rest, meditate, exercise, whatever that might be, whatever your topic is. Okay, we're going to write that down as our bullseye. Okay, now then off of that circle, I want you to draw lines, north, south, east, and west, if you will. Up, down, left, right, left, right. If you're watching my hands, you saw that I did that backwards. Off of that circle. So in the middle of the bullseye, we've got our topic or title. And then we have, the 4 lines going off, the 4 spokes of our wheel. If you really want to know, for those of you who love diving behind the curtains, I actually went super geek on you a long time ago, about almost 10 years ago now. And I went through a whole bunch of books and I broke down the concept of every single solitary book into 4 parts. And every time I say this, somebody's like, well, what about such and such? It doesn't conform to that. But basically speaking, every book can break down into 4 parts. Okay. And we're going to go through those 4 sections. Now, these aren't chapters. Any one of these sections could be one chapter, it could be multiple chapters, but we just want to look at the sections that are going to make up your book. Okay. We're going to start off first with the line that's going to the right or pointing east, whichever way you want to think about it. What we need to do in this section, and it doesn't matter whether we're talking fiction or nonfiction, the first thing we need to do is create know, like, and trust. People buy from people that they know, like, and trust. Now, if you're talking about a fiction book, we read books about a character that we know and want to know more about. If we don't care about the main character in a book, we're not going to read the whole rest of the book. And so in the beginning of those books, we begin to create that understanding of it. So for the most part, we're talking about nonfiction type of books here in this setting. And for a nonfiction book, it's even more important that people really know us, like us, and trust us, so that they then will take the advice that we're going to give them. And that breaks down into 3 little steps under that. And that is, who are you and how did you discover this? Okay, we're going to start off first talking a little bit about who you are now. So we want to share with the people a vision of what is possible. We want them to be able to see the quote unquote end of the road. None of us ever reach the end of the road until the end of our lives. But even if we're one step ahead of the person we're helping, we can show them where that next rock is. We can be an example of what living here versus where they are looks like. And we say to ourselves, this is what life is like now. And we give them an example of that. But then, and here's another word for you to write, another set of words for you to write down. Then we need to be vulnerable and valuable. Any of you that remember back just a couple of minutes ago, Seth Godin's book, V is for vulnerable. When we are vulnerable with people, that's when we connect to them and can give them true value. And so that's where our second part of this comes in. And that's, it wasn't always this way. What was life like before you started doing the thing that you're now teaching? What did you struggle with? We'll go back to my concept about a book on hydrating properly, drinking water on a regular basis. And maybe you talk about, in the first part, you were talking about how much more mentally alert you are because your brain is well hydrated and those kind of things. And then in this section, you're going to talk about how you used to feel sluggish all the time. You used to find yourself struggling with mental acuity. You used to always feel parched and dehydrated, whatever that kind of thing is. And it can be big or small. All right. And I think that's one of the things that we miss when we're talking about our book. And that's that we think if my book isn't the cure for cancer, then it just isn't important enough. And yet, for the person your book's meant for, it will mean everything. And this is where we get a chance to be truly vulnerable to them and help them out by showing them, I know where you've been because I've been there myself too. And then lastly, in that section, we're going to talk about this is what I learned. This is how I discovered this thing that I'm going to teach you. This is what I started doing in my life that helped me not deal with that day-to-day situation that I was dealing with. Doesn't have to mean that your life's perfect. It just simply needs to mean that you found something. My father used to always say, fellowship is just one beggar telling another beggar where to find bread. And that's all we really are doing in life, is we're just simply taking what we do know and being able to share it to somebody else. So from our eastward bound line, our line going to the right, put 3 little lines there and just kind of put in. Now, these are notes for you. So as long as you can read it or you know what it means, you can put even just concepts. The time I did that thing with my brother Bob. As long as you know what that story is, that's enough. And we're going to talk about how good life is now, meaning an example of what life can look like for them. What you went through, the worst then, and what you learned. Why are you sharing this? Why is it important to you for them to learn it? I'm going to give you just a second here. Just kind of think on those for just a little bit. I don't want to have a lot of dead air in here, but I do want you to be able to have a minute to think about. This is who I am today, but it hasn't always been that way. And this is what I learned. Okay, so next we're going to move to the line going south, line moving down, and that is our section 2, and that is our teaching. That is, what does it solve? Now, the basic concept when we're speaking from stage or things like that is we want to tell people what we're going to tell them, and then we want to tell them, and then we want to tell them what we told them. Now, when you're doing a speech, that's the whole entire speech. When you're doing a book, that is section 2. That's the teaching part. That's the all the steps, the how do you be able to get to do it kind of a thing. And we break it down into easy steps for them. So if we're going back again to my concept of hydration, it might be that there is a whole process for learning how often you need to drink water. And maybe we need to explain to them first why you need to, and then you need to learn how you're going to integrate that into your life. And we go into that in more depth and more detail so that they really understand. If it was, I always think in this section about the person that I met who had a literal traumatic event around dishes. I know it seems silly, but it really for them was nearly PTSD around doing dishes. Um, and they met a coach that actually worked and helped people put systems in place with things like that. Um, and it was so amazing to watch because this person went from a place where dishes was a triggering event for them every day to the dishes becoming kind of their sanctuary time of every day, the time that they looked forward to more than anything else. And they got specially scented soap, spent a little bit more money than normal on dish soap. And they put scented candles up and did special lighting. And it was a real special sacred space for them doing the dishes. And it got to the point where they looked forward to that. They chased all the kids out of the kitchen, and they just really enjoyed that time. And they transitioned from a thing that was horrible for them. And yet, in most cases, if somebody were to say to you, I'm really triggered over dishes, most of us would probably be like, wow, really? And yet for them, it made all the difference. And so we want to help people know how to be able to do those things. We want to share with them a solution. We want to tell them and identify with them as we're teaching them what they need to do. And the stories of what we've learned, the stories of the clients that we worked with and how they've learned. And I use the word clients, but it could be a friend or a family member or one of your children or maybe even one of your parents that you've been able to go through. And we use those stories to not only connect it, but also to help fill in the space as we're teaching them so that we go through that whole process of helping them know what the solution is, how to be able to do the solution, and what it's going to do for them. What's in it for me is, of course, what all of us want to know. And so we help them through all of that in section 2. And this is the teaching part. Now, if anybody happens to be doing a fiction book, Section 2 would be where we outline all of the exciting stuff that's happening in this world of ours, and we really build the story so that we've gone from this character that we're invested into until we're in a whole storyline that we really want to know more about. All right, so let's move on to section 3. Section 3 is, what is the downside? What's going to happen if you don't do this? Okay, now it's important that we, in essence, take it away from the person. This is going to be the place where we're going to deal with things like, have you ever had anybody say to you, "Oh, I wish I would have met you sooner"? Or have you ever thought, "If only I would have known that years before, then I could have powerfully been able to fix things"? But you didn't know any better, so you couldn't do any better. And that's okay. But now we need to be the one who's down the road. You see, section 3 is a lot like driving down a road, and you know all those signs that are aside of the road that say, exit in 5 miles, that say, here's a rest area, and then the next one won't be for another 50 miles. All of those are the same kind of thing that we do in section 3. Section 3 in a fiction book is the downturn. It's Han and Luke stuck in the trash compactor, and the droids are outside trying to open the doors, and they hear a scream, and, "Oh, I've killed my master," C-3PO says. It's that downturn. It's that ultimate cataclysm, if you will, that needs a resolution. And if we left him here, of course, that would be awful. But we want to give them, in nonfiction, we want to give them the power of choice. We want them to feel empowered to be able to know, what if I don't do this? What is life going to look like? And we can show them, okay, I've been down that road too. It took me longer than I hope it will take you to get to this point. And because of that, I would really like to be able to show you a vision of what it's like. I did a book with a lady, and she was writing her book specifically to people with diabetes. And in this section, one of the things she was talking about was people who ended up having to have amputations because they would not address, either medically or diet wise, their diabetes, and it cost them, in this case, literally an arm and a leg. Now that might be a little bit extreme from what most of us do, but that is a great example of the kind of things that we can be stuck in if we don't do this thing. So we've got our line, and we've been working on the line going west or to the left. And we want to talk about why we wish we had done it sooner. What is the stuff that you're going through right now that could be better? What are the things that are coming up down the road if you don't make this change? And just do it. We don't want to be a downer in this section, but we want to give them the vision to empower them to make choice. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's move on to section 4. Section 4 is, what key things can they do right now, today? Now we're going to break actions into 2 things, okay? We're going to give them an action that they can do on their own. Set down the book and do this thing. And then we're also going to give them a next step in working with us. So we have 2 actions technically in our step 4. The action of what they can do today. So let me go back to my silly example about drinking more water, because I think it's something all of us can relate to. And when I say 1 to 5 tips, it's actually 1 tip, if you will, with 1 to 5 steps, or 1 to 5 tips to do that one thing. So we don't want to say do this and do that, journal and pray and meditate and read 5 chapters of the Bible and read Think and Grow Rich. And, we don't want to give them a bunch of that. We want to give them one thing with tips on how they can do that. And so again, going back to the water example, if you want to give the people an action they could do right now, the action right now is, first of all, turn away from the computer. Now, why is that important? Because all too often we get stuck checking the next email, looking at the next Facebook post, and we never actually get turned away from the computer. Okay, and then stand up and then walk away from the computer, then go out to the kitchen, get the water, and then actually drink the water right there while after you've gotten the water. As opposed to, you go out and you get the water and you bring it back and it sits on your desk next to you and you still aren't drinking the water. Okay. And so that would be an idea of some immediately actionable, the step-by-step process for how they can put into action one little thing that they can do off of what we've taught them right here, right now, today. And then secondarily, we give them hey, now that you've done this, I'd love to be able to take you on the next step. And it looks like, or I would love to talk to you about what you've learned from this, or whatever that might be. And from a marketing perspective, what we always want to do is give people a next thing that they can do once they've done this thing that we've taught them this time. So now we've got our northward, or up, if you will, line, and it has our action steps, and it has for us some ways that we can really leave people empowered in choice. So we want to go back through and make sure that under each one of those 4 lines, we have the 3 to 5 most important points for each section. All right, section 1. So I'm just going to do a review real quick here. Section 1 is, who are you and how did you discover this? This is who I am today, but it wasn't always that way. And this is what I learned. Okay. Section 2 is, well, what does this solve? Let's teach them. Let's actually help them be empowered with knowledge so that they can make a different choice. Section 3 is, what is the downside if you don't do this? Okay, it's all right to not do this. Here's what's going to happen if you do. And then section 4 is, what can they do right now, today? What is their next step with you? What is the next step they can sit down the book and do right now? Now, are there any of these areas that you're struggling with? Do you need help completing them a little bit? Because guess what? I do have help to be able to do that for you. Now, lastly, we're going to take in each of those 4 sections and ask ourselves, what are the stories that emphasize each of these sections the most? So we don't want to get too overwhelmed in stories, but we do want to share stories that are relatable, of your own struggles, of struggles of people you've worked with, things that will allow you to be, as I said before, vulnerable and valuable, and will allow people to see themselves in it. It's unfortunate, but it's true that whenever we're going through something, we feel completely alone. I remember when my mother-in-law, my former mother-in-law, was going through cancer. In the chemo room, sometimes she'd fall asleep, and I would get a chance to be able to go and talk with other people who were there alone. And the saddest part of all ever was the fact that every single one of them in chemo, dealing with essentially the same thing, all of them felt alone. They felt like they were the only person that had ever been through that. And that's pretty normal for us as people. And so when we can show people vulnerably in our book that I've been through this too, you're not alone, and I'm here to come alongside of you and help you through it, we can help make a difference for that person. So we have our 4 lines with 3 or 4 or 5 little lines off of it, and little notes of additional stories we can add in there. And that's kind of the outline of how your paper may look. Now, it's fine if it's messy. All of mine, when I do them, are very messy too. That's fine. You're the only one that needs to be able to read it. And congratulations, guess what? You just created the rough draft for your book. There may be some more things you need to fill into it, but that is literally everything that it takes to make a book. And now I'm going to encourage you, don't write anything else. Literally, no more writing. Do what Sir Richard Branson, he's a multi-billionaire, what he's done with all of his books, and just use Simply Speaking to write. Take the notes you've made and the different things and have somebody interview you. If you're working for us, in as little as 30 days, you can go from that interview to your book being done. A book that's vulnerable and authentic, that's very conversational. In other words, when the person reads it, they can say to themselves, I could totally hear you in that. Your words, your style, your voice, just simply us helping you get through your stuff to a completed product. And then, of course, because I have a marketing company, my question for you is, what are you going to do with your book? Are you going to use your book because you want to sell your book? Is it going to be a free giveaway? Is it going to be something that goes in swag bags when you're a speaker on stage? What can you do with your book that'll make the difference that only you can make? Because someone is waiting on you. Somebody needs exactly who you are and what you do to make the difference in their life and in their world. There's an old story. I tell it all the time. A child was running down the beach after a huge snowstorm, or I'm sorry, rather storm out at sea, and the waves had crashed and washed up a whole bunch of sand dollars or starfish. And the starfish were, living the last of their life stranded out on the beach. So this child was out there throwing this starfish back into the ocean just as quickly as they possibly could. And the man looking on walked up to her finally and said, you'll never be able to save all of them. And she smiled, reached down, picked up another starfish and threw it in the ocean and said, yes, but to that one, it means all the difference. You see, for you, your book, and I hope it reaches millions, but for the one, that's all that matters. That makes all the difference in the world because someone is waiting on you. Whether your book's 10 years old or you haven't started it, I'm here to help you. I would love for you to go to bookhelpapplication.com, fill out the information there, and let me know how I can help you. As I said, somebody's waiting on you for the book. Just need to know, are you ready? We have programs that are done for you, done with you, taught to you, marketing you, wherever you are, whatever you need to complete your book. I'm here to help you. I'd love to help you, your people, collaborate with you and your people. Anything I can do. It can all start as easily as just going to bookhelpapplication.com and helping out that somebody that's waiting on you. And again, like I said, I guarantee if you work with me, your book will be a bestseller. I've done it nearly 5,000 times. In fact, I'm so confident that it will work for you that I'm willing to let you book a free call with me to talk about your book or your client's book or any book that you have working on. You can just go to askstevekid.com and grab free 15 minutes. I'll help you in any aspect of your book or your marketing that you'd like to have. And if you're ready to make that book a reality, once again, go to bookhelpapplication.com. It's my privilege to have had to be asked to do this for you guys today. I love this group and I love working with you and helping you, doing the things and being the you that is you. If there's any questions, we've got a few minutes before the top of the hour. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have on books or any of those other kind of things.
You haven't given me a question, but this has been amazing. I've been an old Toastmaster forever, so speaking and doing interviews and so on is beautiful. And I'm thinking that the transcripting is going to be the right answer for coming up for the book quickly.
Yes, absolutely.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. You've got this beautiful voice, that just, you can tell you're a pastor.
Oh, thanks. So how are things going for you? I mean, I know we're, the group is Collaborators Collective, hard to say. How are things going for you in your collaborations?
I think it's just nicely getting started. I try and remember to get there, and then sometimes we kind of get lost about how are we supposed to get into this thing. So I think there are little wrinkles to smooth out, because this certainly
Right.
should have had 20, 30 people coming in. But it's beautiful. At least you got to record it and use it now as well. And
Yeah.
will you be sending it out to us as well or not?
Yes, yeah, I will make it available on replay for everybody in the group and everybody that signed up for the event. So that anybody that,
Okay,
yeah.
so you'll just do it by, how will you do that?
For the group itself, I know that Abigail's going to put that out. For me,
Okay.
I'm just going to upload it to YouTube, and I'll give everybody that was either here on live or signed up on the event on Facebook. I'll just send them a direct message
Wonderful.
that has the YouTube link.
Yeah. Really good. Can you explain? You've explained the timeline. It's very quick. What kind of dollars do we have to be looking at to do a simple little book? Help it getting your help.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really easy. You just write me a check for $1 million and I work for you forever.
No
No,
problem. I'll have 4.
Yeah, right. I mean, I have a done for you program that's a $15,000 program, a done with you program that's an $8,000 program, and a taught to you program that runs between $3,000 and $5,000, depending on which of the classes you take.
Terrific.
And then we have all kinds of just marketing already done books that we have different levels of that as well.
Right. Yeah, they're all great. I remember being at a speaking conference, and what they had done was actually, they didn't even get fancy. They just had the different chapters. I mean, you could see that those were different chapters with different topics, very much what you're talking about. Just photocopied off and put it across the back of the room. And so it wasn't even fancy, and professional, still worked.
Yeah, absolutely.
But having a book as a bestseller is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Joy or Sandy, or I see you're both muted, but do you have any questions or anything I can help you with?
Hi, it's Joy. I'm just wondering about once you have your outline, like I've been working on a book probably more than 10 years now. I don't even want to admit how long it is. Once I have an outline, I've just been procrastinating on doing it. Do you have like editing services? Do you do print on demand? Do you do like, how does the next steps? And I've looked into this many times and I've never actioned it. So it's like, my brain is on overload for it. So
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're going to do when we meet with you first is we're going to talk strategy. In other words, we're going to talk about who's the book for and what do they need, so that we can kind of identify what is that bullseye for the book. And then, I have story development editors, content editors, if you will, that'll go through and help for you identify, what's missing, what might be too much, whatever, those kind of things. They're going to go through the book and make comments and suggestions. So it's less editing, less grammar editing and more helping you develop the story to be exactly what you had wanted it to be. And so then after we have content, then we go from there to grammar. And we have a grammar editor come in. We use a format that's called MLA format. That's according to what my English lit people tell me, that's a conversational format of grammar editing. Like I said, we want it to really sound like you. Editing is kind of an iterative process. You can always edit more, but it's kind of hard to edit less, other than just trashing the last edit you did and starting over. So we do it little by little so that we get it edited to exactly the way that you want it. We have graphics people that'll do the cover for you, both ebook and print form. And then we help you establish an account on Amazon so that you own your book. I'm real big on making sure that you actually have control over your book. And then Amazon does print on demand. So whenever somebody comes to Amazon, they will just print it and ship it and you get your cut. And of course, the ebook, they just send it via email and you get your cut, or, via ebook format and you get your cut. And then if you want to have copies, you're going to go to an event, you want to have a copy on the shelf behind yourself or what have you, you can buy those directly from Amazon's printers at wholesale cost. And so it starts out at about, well, not at about it, $2.30 for the first 105 pages and goes up in really small increments from there. So if you did decide to do a 300-page book, that's going to run you just shy of about $4 per book at wholesale. And then, of course, we do the whole marketing launch, make your book a bestseller. We guarantee it. We do all the SEO for your book listing on Amazon so that it's optimized for people searching on Amazon. They'll find your book. And like I said, we're going to launch your book, make it a bestseller. I go live with you onto my syndicated radio show and out to my social media to share you with my world. And give you some audios that you can use as well.
All right, cool. Great. Thank you.
So yeah, Joy, go to askstevekid.com and let's talk. Let's get you from this cool book you've been working on to this cool book that you've got all done. How about you, Sandy? Do you have any questions? All right. Well, if nobody has any more questions, I know we're a couple minutes early. But I'm here to help anytime. Feel free anytime to go to askstevekid.com and schedule a free call with me, or if you're ready to go to book help application, and we can walk you through which of those different price point levels, where you are, how can we help best. I'm here to help you out. I love collaborating with people, and whether it be yourself or your clients or those kind of things, I'm here to see you be successful and see you share that cool thing that is you with the world. Thanks so much for being with us here today. I appreciate all of you. And I hope that until we meet for the next meeting or in the next whatever collaboration we do, that you all have a really wonderful, amazing, and great week.